How to deal with criticism. As long as I remember myself, I've struggled with rejection and criticism and failure, and I experienced what is described as rejection-sensitive dysphoria even. So when I was younger, any bad words would send me into this fight or flight mode, and I would physically feel bad. I would physically feel exhausted. I wanted to run away. But in the past couple of days, one of my videos got popular and people were commenting, and most of these comments were respectful and constructive. However, of course, some of the comments were bad, and let me read one of them. One guy said, "You are stupid and a disgrace to the Alex name." Another one says, "Another clueless idiot crying about disinformation. Either very stupid or very dishonest, probably both." Then another one said, "Why does this video of this or this person exist?" So they are asking why I exist. I didn't make that decision, you know. Anyway, what a moron. Weak, pathetic moron who wants to shut down something, something, something. Okay, so you see all of these comments, and these are just like part of it. Well, there were a bit more, but this is to show you that, you know, I got these comments, but what I found is that this time I don't really care. I mean, no, I do care that, you know, my content produces that kind of reaction, but at the same time, I'm not taking this to heart. I don't let it, how to say, it doesn't have that influence on me anymore. And so today, maybe we can talk about why. And today I will try to analyze how I changed in the past years that allowed me to not be afraid of criticism anymore. So the most important feature, I think, the most important change of mindset that I had was for me to change my focus from you to the task. What do I mean by that? Usually you will find that the most productive and successful people, they usually think in terms of problems and tasks. So they don't think about like, can I do this? They think about, can I accomplish this goal? Can I achieve this? Can I achieve that? And if they have a goal, then they are thinking about how to achieve that. Okay? And so when you think about that, if you have any kind of goal in your communication, in your activity, then you will think about this not from the point of view as somebody is attacking you, but somebody is attacking that whatever you are doing. And that's a very different thing, right? Because it's like, okay, imagine you made a clay cup. Okay, you're trying pottery for the first time, and you made a cup, and then you put for everybody to see, and then somebody says, "Oh my God, this cup is horrible," right? Or they just take a hammer or stick and like smash this cup. Well, of course, it might be unpleasant, but they didn't hit you, right? And so that's the difference. You don't get hurt as much, right? So you still can experience some unpleasant feelings. Of course, it's not gonna go away. But at the same time, you will find that it doesn't hurt that much. So they hated the cup, not you. And say they could, of course, kind of attack you from just by looking at the cup. What kind of idiot made this cup? But at the same time, you know that you are making this cup for some purpose. And you know that this was your first attempt. So of course, and if you are honest with yourself, right? You would look at this cup and say to yourself, well, doesn't look that great, actually. And so actually that person might be just overreacting to the core of truth, that this cup doesn't look so good, but of course they will blow it out of proportion, and that is their problem, okay? This is important. Do you know this saying, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder? It's the same. The criticism, the disgust, all of this is not about you, it's about them. Okay, so that is one important mind shift. If you focus on the task, then you need to ask yourself, is this task important enough? Because if it's not important enough, then why are you doing it? Well, like in my cup example, imagine you don't have anything to drink from, right? So then, of course, it's important to you. And maybe it doesn't look great, okay, but it's important enough for you to not stop doing. And even if somebody doesn't like, you will try again because you need a cup in your life, right? So this is the approach. It has to be important, whatever you're doing. And so in my case, I am making this channel, I am making this podcast because it's important to me. Understand? And so because it's important to me, even if some people don't like it, I will be like, okay, thank you for the criticism, but I will keep doing. And I will show you later how I process criticism so that I actually get value from it. Okay? And so I actually ignore these kinds of comments that I mentioned, like this is stupid, blah, blah, because this person is not trying to help. But a bit later on that. But here's, again, I want to reinforce this point. This is not about you. This is about the task. And if this is important, you cannot allow it to stop you. If you will be stopped by criticism, well, then don't do it. Don't even start. There you go. That's the solution. Or do something so important that criticism will not stop you. That's so simple. Anyway, and so now let's change the focus, right? So we have a task at hand, right? And so we are doing that, something, whatever, making cups, doesn't matter. And so then when people comment, criticize us, then we have to treat it as feedback about the results of our labor. So you made a cup, it looks horrible. People say, oh, well, you know what? It doesn't look so good. And then you're like, okay, that's feedback. Now I know. Because in the majority of cases, it's not so obvious. You can't judge by yourself. And like in my case with this YouTube channel, oftentimes I find that I have no idea what I'm doing. And I know. So that's why it's fine. Because for me, this is important enough that I'm learning. And when people criticize me, I'm not like, oh my God, my life is ruined because somebody said I didn't do a good job. I know I didn't do a good job. I know that I started it like a month ago. So of course it's impossible. It's like telling a baby, hey, dumb baby, why can't you walk? 1 month after they started standing. It's impossible, right? And so when you get that perspective, you will be like, okay, well, so let's just ignore the negative side and let's focus on what I can learn from this experience, from this feedback. Because, this is how actually airplanes fly. This is a famous example, I think by Tony Robbins or somebody like that. Basically, when you get on a plane, okay, you want to fly from the US to the continental US to Hawaii, okay? How do you do it? You get on a plane. Do pilots steer the airplane all the time? No. They just switch on the button of the autopilot, and the autopilot is gonna take the airplane wherever it needs to go. But here's the important point. The airplane is off course most of the time. So the airplane is wrong most of the time. But still, airplane gets to the destination. How? By correcting. And so this is called feedback loop. And if you have no feedback in your task, right? It could be good feedback, but it's not that interesting. It's, at least in my case, what I find is that I would rather have constructive criticism than just good job, Well, good job in what? What can I improve? Usually people don't mention that. And so for me, it's like constructive criticism or constructive praise is better, right? Even so, constructive criticism could be better than non-constructive praise. Because good job doesn't tell you where exactly, what you can focus on, what you can improve. But constructive criticism say, well, I like this video, but you were wrong about this. Or this video is good, but you should speak in different way. Then you're like, okay, thank you very much. And so now let's talk about how to deal with constructive criticism. Well, how to deal with most criticism. And honestly, this is kind of interesting because, at least in my case, I found that YouTube actually automatically blocks a lot of the useless comments. So the comments that I read to you, they didn't pass the filters by YouTube. So I didn't even see those comments unless I went to like held for review section, and then in that section the YouTube said some of these comments may be offensive, do you still want to see them? I'm like, yes, bring it on, and that's how I found those comments. But most of the comments actually, even if they're critical, they are respectful enough for me to be like, okay, let's read it, let's learn it. And so when I get those kinds of comments, for example, or when you make the cup, or when people complain about something, right? Then you have to ask yourself 3 basic questions. And there are more, but I like to simplify. So for me, it's 3. Question number 1, are they trying to help? And so it's easy to say, like, this is emotional judgment. And so when you're reading a comment, it's very quick. You can quickly understand, are they trying to help? And if they're not trying to help, then ignore. This is a filter, right? So this comment doesn't pass the filter, and then you don't pay attention to it. Because if they're not trying to help you, right, what's the point of even paying attention to that? You made a cup, right? And somebody says, crap. Well, are they trying to help? No. So what? So yes, crap, and? So then if you really are desperate for, feedback, then you can ask, yeah, crap, what do you mean by that? Then they have to explain. And if they don't want, this is kind of interesting point that I found that in school years, I could stop bullying. Verbal bullying is often how it all starts, how physical bullying starts. And so in my case, somebody would make some bad remark to me, and I would just ignore it. Then they would say it again, of course. And then I would say, what do you mean? And then they have to explain themselves. Then it's just kind of, nobody wants to explain their, how to say it. If people try to bully you and make snarky remarks, nobody wants to explain. Nobody wants to expand on that. And so if you ask them to do that, they're like, oh, I don't want to talk to this guy. I can't bully him. He doesn't understand my attacks. And so then they stop. But this is also the same way as works with criticism. If they are not trying to help, you could still ask them, what do you mean by that? Or could you clarify? Could you give me an example? Then they have a choice. Do they explain it? Do they not explain it? Do they just run away? Oftentimes, I find that especially constructive criticism, if you can take it in good spirit, it completely changes people's attitude to you. And they say, oh, well, this is a dumb video because no. And you're like, you know what, you're right. This is a dumb video. And you just made a good point. I will try to do my best in the future because maybe it's true. And so then the next point is this a fact or opinion? This is the next filter. If this is a fact, then of course you should take this comment seriously. If it's just an opinion, then you would have to think, okay, then you proceed to the next step, okay? And the next step is, does this person have relevant knowledge or experience? Because let's say I once recorded a video about Alex Jones, okay? And so I know him, I've watched his videos, and but there are people in the comments who are much more knowledgeable about him, and they comment and they criticize my point of view. And so what I did, let's pay attention to these people because they actually have more experience than me. They know about him much more than I do. So let's listen to what they say because they might be right. Understand? And so it would be stupid of me not to listen to them. It would be so wrong to just ignore an opinion of a person who knows more than you. It's like going to a doctor and doctor tells you should do this and you're like, I know what's better for me. No, you don't. He's a doctor, he's seen, or a teacher, I once saw a guy on Facebook. He was complaining about how teacher recommended him to let his child walk to the school at like 5. Well, it doesn't matter. But so teacher expressed his opinion, and the parent was fuming on the Facebook, saying, oh, how dare this teacher tell me how to treat my child. Well, the teacher has seen like hundreds of kids. Right? So they have much better perspective than you do. Anyway, so next point is after this comment passes all these filters, right? So the person is trying to help. It may be fact, then you don't need to filter anymore. This is fact, right? It's like, yes, you're right, completely. Accept this because it doesn't matter what you think. If they tell you a fact, it's done. You are wrong, they were right. But if this is an opinion, then do they have relevant experience? And so if this comment passes all these filters, then you can go to analyzing step. Because if this is a legit feedback, right? Again, criticism can be legit feedback, as we already discussed. Next, we are moving to the analysis, okay? And you can analyze this comment in terms of, again, you can ask yourself questions. My questions are, what can I learn from this? And number 2, how can I change what I do? So these two questions are one of the most powerful questions for personal development and for your life in general. Is you have this feedback, right? or you even failed in life, and then you're like, okay, what can I learn from this? And usually what can I learn is how you will change your attitude, your behavior, your thinking in the future, okay? And so let's say with the cup, right? You made the cup, it looks horrible, somebody is criticizing your cup, and you're like, okay, so what can I learn? And then you try to find a way how to make your next cup better. And again, you see, we are talking about the task at hand. We are not thinking about you. It's not about you. It's about the task. Your task is to make a good cup, right? And so if the person says, no, your cup is horrible, then you're like, okay, how can I improve it? And they say, well, you should hold your hands like this so that the edges will be, smoother, and so you don't cut yourself when drinking, for example. Or this cup will fall apart, or something like that. The handle is not strong enough. Then you're like, okay, so next time I should make handle stronger, for example, or edges smoother, or the cup should be connected better. So you will make a conclusion, you will change your future actions based on that, and that's done. And I've mentioned before, this is also how you process trauma, because trauma is usually your inability to process bad experiences. And once you process this bad experience through asking yourself, what can I learn from this? How is this going to change my life? How am I going to improve myself as a result of this? Then you don't have the trauma anymore. You have the control, you process it. Okay? Next. So assuming now you get this point, I hope you get. If you don't get, please ask a question, because this is the first time I'm explaining this. And again, you see, I am asking for feedback because I know that this is not a perfect explanation. I have a paper in front of me. It has all of these talking points, but I'm not sure if I can get these points across to you well. And so I am doing my best, but I still might suck at this. Actually, I think I do suck at this. But anyway, if you have any ideas how to improve this, what you didn't understand, please leave a comment, okay? And if you're liking this, please subscribe. Anyway, so assuming you have this mind shift now, okay? Next step is that you need to understand that this is not just a one-time solution, right? You can't just watch this video and suddenly magically you become more resilient and less prone to, stressing out about criticism. No, it's a matter of training. It's like if I show you how to do a pull-up, it doesn't mean that you will be able to do a pull-up. You need to work yourself to that point where you can do pull-ups, right? And so now let's talk about how to start implementing this. Okay, so now you know that you need to change your focus, right? You need to ask the questions. You have the filter questions. Are they trying to help? Is it fact or opinion? And do they have relevant experience? If this is all, if this comment passes the filters, then you ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Or how to change what I'm doing, right? So the next point is you have your thought patterns. You can't change them very quickly, right? And so it will take time, and treat this as training. So any even small progress on the path to, let's say, not being so stressed out about criticism is already a good thing, right? So how to help you even more? This is what I found for myself. As I mentioned, I had this rejection sensitive dysphoria, right? Symptoms of that, okay? I'm not saying I had it. I've never been diagnosed, but I had symptoms of that. I remember once my ex-wife's father mentioned that he corrected my Japanese grammar, and I felt so embarrassed. I couldn't stop thinking about it for like an hour, and I had some really horrible thoughts, to be honest. I was so embarrassed. I was so stressed. I remember like my hands sweating and, like full-on stress response. And it's not okay. Like, a comment should not make you that stressed, right? Anyway, so I know how it feels, and how I managed to deal with it is this. There is what's called pause and plan. So we all know fight or flight response, right? So you see an animal, dangerous animal in the forest, you're like, oh my God, your heart is beating, palms are sweating, but criticism is not dangerous. And in this case, you need to replace that fight or flight with pause and plan. So when somebody says something bad, your natural response will be fight or flight. And so then you consciously have to stop yourself, stop whatever you're doing, and be like, okay, what am I feeling now? So you need to identify this emotion or your condition. And so if you stop, pause, this is the pause, right? You stop and you're like, I'm stressed, or I feel angry, or I feel ashamed, or I want to run away, I feel threatened. Then you can go to the next step, right? So you identify how you feel, and that should already take the edge off. You're like, oh, okay, I feel embarrassed by this comment. Okay. And I feel that our younger generations are much better than, let's say, our grandparents and parents at identifying their emotions. I don't know why that is. But anyway, so after you identify this emotion, now you can process it. And the steps to process any kind of emotion or feeling or even thoughts are basically A, B, C, D. A stands for activating event. And so if you do it in the moment, you know the activating event. So you made a cup, somebody says, oh my God, this cup is horrible. That's the activating event. Somebody making a comment about your cup looking horrible. Okay. Next is the belief. A, B, belief. Belief is the underlying belief, your worldview, that accepts that comment as negative. So in my case, hopefully we changed our belief that your product, whatever you produce, are the reflection of you. So if somebody says, maybe you have this belief that if whatever you made is perceived as bad, then it means you are bad. Or it means maybe that you made something bad, then means you are bad, therefore, and then this is a belief, right? Therefore, nobody will like you, therefore, you will be alone, therefore, this is dangerous, therefore, you will die. It's possible. And in my case, for example, this was about kind of the same how I would think. You know, somebody said, no, you made a crappy cup. And I would think, oh no, I made a crappy cup. It means I'm not a good person, not worthy, right? And if I'm not worthy, then nobody will care. And, you know, so basically there is often a chain of thought that leads you to this sense of danger, right? And that's why you feel this bad, okay? So now you identified the belief that was triggered by this comment, this situation, this criticism. Next is C. You need to think about the consequences of not changing this. And honestly, it really depends on you. It depends on how much time you have, how much... Usually, I don't really care about that. I usually have enough motivation to like say to myself, okay, this is not true. And I just discard this belief. For me, it's kind of easy. But if it's not enough, then you think about the consequences. What are the consequences of not changing this belief? Let's say, what are the consequences of me caring about the cup so much that I stop making cups? That would be horrible, because then I stop making cups, then I don't have a cup, and my problem is not solved. And so it will never be solved, and my life will not be better if I keep thinking like this. And so then the next step, hopefully by now you will understand that, okay, so this activating event causes my belief to react in a negative way, and if I don't change anything, my life will be horrible. Then the last step is to dispute. A, B, C, D, dispute, right? So we need to, and this kind of already is related to what we already talked about, analyzing and filters, right? But disputing usually, at least in my case, it's number one, we need to think about this comment, for example. Is it based on facts or assumptions? And is this belief is based on facts or assumptions? So imagine if you could change this belief that's saying, okay, if you produce a bad cup, then you are not a worthy person. Is this a fact or an assumption? And most likely it's not a fact. And if it's not a fact, then it's not true. So should you care about that? So you're like, wait, that might be not true. If somebody tells you, you know, if you go across this street and on the other side there is a person giving out free money, you'd be like, that doesn't sound like a true statement. I should ignore this. Well, why shouldn't you ignore then your beliefs that are not true, right? And the last point that I want to mention is how to dispute, is think about the opposite, okay? And this is, for me at least, this works wonders because it's so simple, so fast. So what do I mean by that? Thinking about opposites. Somebody says, your cup is horrible. And then you think to yourself, oh, if this cup is horrible, it means I'm a bad person. So then you would do this. To attack your limiting belief, you would be like, this cup is horrible, therefore I'm a wonderful, amazing human being. And then you're like, well, that's not true. So then what you will find is that a lot of times in life, opposite statements are not true. So let's say somebody says, alcohol is good. And you're like, Well, is it always good? Well, no, when you're driving, it's bad. Okay, alcohol is bad. Is it always bad? Well, no, sometimes it could be good. If you need anesthesia, for example, but you have nothing, well, just take a sip, And so that's my point. Such categorical statements as what we have as our limiting beliefs usually are not true, because the opposite is also not true. And to show ourselves that they are not true, we can just show ourselves the opposite. And so this is how to deal with criticism. Basically, somebody says something, let's say again, cup. This cup is horrible. You're like, okay, are they trying to help? No, ignore. Next, well, you know what? This cup could be better, somebody else says. And you're like, okay, tell me more. And then you will analyze, okay, how can I change it in the future? And then if you feel in the moment, you're like, oh my God, this is horrible. Well, take a deep breath, pause. How do you feel? I feel attacked. Okay, why do you feel attacked? If this is not about you, it's about the cup. All right? And so then you're, oh, I think that, if people comment on my products, I want to say products, whatever I produce, then it means they're attacking me. Is it a true statement? Would the opposite be true? If they make a comment about your cup, are they gonna admit that you're amazing? No. Does making a beautiful cup make you amazing in every possible way? No. If you made a beautiful cup, are they gonna, give you all their money? Are they gonna, make you their god? No. So the opposite is also not true. If they say this cup is horrible, are they gonna make you their enemy? No. They just don't like the cup. And so that's my point. Usually our innate internal beliefs, they cause us more trouble than the comments themselves. And so this is how I deal with comment, and I am able to not be threatened by constructive criticism, because most of times the people who comment, they actually comment because they have different perspective. And so sometimes it's just they have more experience than me. Like I mentioned with Alex Jones, definitely many people had more experience with him, they had better understanding, and they commented, and I accepted a lot of their comments because people actually make sense. They can explain their idea, and number one, I respect that a lot. Number two, it actually makes sense, so I can accept it, and it fits my worldview, and so I don't have to break my personality to accept their opinions. But sometimes it's just different perspective. My perspective is like this, their perspective is like that. And so you can, if you have a clear picture of the world, you will understand that not all people have to agree, because not all people are the same, right? Some people are tall, some people are short. So for short people, oh no, this door is too tall. For tall people, this door is too short. And that's fine. You don't have to agree on your opinions. You can respect them, right? And so that's it. There is no conflict in there. And that's it for today, guys. I will see you next time.